Ho, 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 and welcome to a special Christmas episode of Real Good Movies. I am one of your hosts, Will Beeman, the production manager for College TV. And right after the credit jump here, we'll dive into a lovely holiday-filled episode with the main feature for this one being the new film Violent Night, starring David Harbour. So let's roll and grab your popcorn. The show's about to begin.
Gosh, I love movies.
For today's episode, we have a panel with a new student on it, and before we get to introduce them, welcoming back to the show is Desiree. Desiree, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm doing good.
Good. Thank you for being here yet again. And Will, thank
Hi.
you for making your debut on Real Good Movies. How are you today?
I'm doing extra jolly. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you wore your nice festive llama shirt, and Desiree's wearing her festive green, so everyone is in the holiday spirit.
Yes.
Before we dive into a conversation about the movie Violent Night, we're going to go through everyone on the panel's top 5 Christmas movies of all time and kind of just briefly talk about each one and why we've put that in our list. So let's throw up the first image and see who's going to be talking about their films first. It's going to be Will. So Will, why don't you break through your list here and just give like a sentence or two on why each one made your list.
All right, so I'll start with the first one. This is not particular in any order, but the Santa Claus, specifically the trilogy with Tim Allen, probably one of my favorite Christmas movies. My favorite is probably the third addition to the franchise with Jack Frost in it. Number 2, Home Alone, probably one of my favorite. This is probably like my favorite movie of all time, not just favorite Christmas movie, just because of how much nostalgia it brings me watching it when I was younger. Joe Pesci and Macaulay Culkin, like really good chemistry between the bad guys, and just a really all good movie. How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey, really good, classic. For some reason, the characters like Cindy Lou Who and the gang, they kind of scared me as a kid, but really good movie. The Polar Express, probably my favorite Christmas movie. It's just a lot of memories that come with it. You know, watching it with a group of kids and in school, and A Christmas Carol. This is not really talked about a lot, but it's the animated one with Jim Carrey that was made by Disney. Just a lot of uncanniness in it that scared me when I was younger, but still a really good movie with a good story with the Scrooge.
Yeah, that's a good solid list. I think it's funny to hear The Grinch being referred to as a classic since I remember seeing that movie in theaters. So thanks for aging me a little bit today. I don't even think Zed, who's working on cameras, was born when that movie came out, but here we are talking about it in the year 2022 as a classic. And the next person up for top Christmas movies should be Desiree, if I remember, and it is. So Desiree, why don't you go over your list?
Yeah, so I put mine's in order, I guess, but like the How the Grinch Stole Christmas, I'm sorry to say it's a classic. Now that you said that, that's what I was gonna go with. But I mean, it's starting to definitely become like a staple for a lot of people, and I love watching it every year. I think the set decoration and the set design and stuff to just make you feel like you're in that world and just like you get so enveloped into it in that movie. I really like that. And obviously Jim Carrey's performance is amazing. I quote that movie all year long. So, and then Elf, another one I feel like is kind of like a Christmas classic now. Like, at least for me, I watch it every year. Will Ferrell's performance is great. I love the look of the New York City Christmas time. It looks way better in a movie than in real life. I've been there. It's okay, but I'm not a city person, so being there is not as fun. But watching it in the movie is so, I don't know, it gets you in the Christmas spirit and stuff. Just Friends is a movie that I guess, like it's set place during Christmas. I guess it's kind of like the conundrum of Die Hard. Like, is it a Christmas movie? But I really like it. It has Ryan Reynolds in it, and he does a great performance in it. I think it's really funny, and Anna Faris is in it too. And she does, I love anything that she's in. And then Gremlins, I love horror movies and scary movies, so the Gremlins movie obviously is one that I really enjoy because of the Christmas part of it and everything. I'm sure there's maybe better Christmas horror movies, which is actually like the fifth one is another one that's a newer one called Better Watch Out. It came out like maybe 2018, I think. But that one also is like, it just is set around Christmas time, but there's definitely some twists to it that I really enjoy, that I like making people watch it with me so I can watch them react to it. Yeah, those are the Christmas movies I like.
Yeah, that's one actually I had not heard about before, so I'm gonna have to look into that for myself. But I do like your list because it is unique. Like there's some choices on there that a lot of people don't really think of, so you can make yourself stand out a little bit for the Christmas one. But my list is in order, and it's got pretty much what you would expect on there. It was hard to pick a number one though for me because I watched so many of them at the same time repeatedly. But just for the episode's sake, I decided National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is going to be number one. My family always teases me and says that Clark Griswold in that movie is me because like my goal has always been to want to host like a giant Christmas like holiday together someday. Hasn't happened yet, but it is on my bucket list. Number two is Elf. For every reason that you could explain, Elf being like an amazing one. I turned into Buddy the Elf during Christmas time, so it feels like it's a little bit of my childlike joy coming out in that film. Number three is A Christmas Story, which has been getting played 24 hours a day on Christmas since, I don't know, probably since I was 7 or 8 years old. But that's one that's become a staple for me at Christmas time. And I always think it's funny is like A Christmas Story was a box office flop. It did not do well in the theaters at all, and really didn't take off until TBS started playing it 24 hours a day, and that's when it kind of got its second wind. Number four is Home Alone. There's just so many ingredients to that movie that make it as good as it is. Like John Williams at the score, John Hughes writing and directing it. The cast is just spot on, giving their best effort. The appearances, John Candy's cameo in that film is amazing. Like that's one of those few movies where every gear that needed to click does, and it does it to perfection. And they were never able to recapture that magic in the franchise again, as much as they've tried. I think there's probably 5 in that franchise now. Yeah. It seems about right. And then rounding it out is It's a Wonderful Life, which is like the seminal classic Christmas film. And to be honest, I didn't even give it its fair shake until last year when I finally watched it for the first time since I was like 4. And was like blown away by how little I remembered of it and how great it really is, and really does give you that feel good, like by the end, like this is the Christmas spirit. And it's one that I immediately bought the 4K Blu-ray of, and it's going to be in my rotation every year from now on. I feel so bad as being the unofficial king of Christmas that I ignored that movie for so long. So I had to do it justice and do it right that way. But those are some good lists and solid Christmas picks. So I guess if anyone watching this episode is like, what should I watch for Christmas time this year? Anyone off of those 3 lists would be a solid pick. But that's going to do it for the discussion before our main film this episode. We're not going to do a box office breakdown because it's all Christmas all the time this month. So let's just dive into our conversation about the film Violent Night, starring David Harbour. Going into that movie, I kind of was like, by the trailers, I was like, this looks like John Wick, except instead of Keanu Reeves, it's Santa Claus. And that's pretty much exactly what it is, and it doesn't try to hide from that. So, like, it's very straightforward, very to the point, but it's awesome, and it's a really fun ride. So I think it's going to be fun to kind of dissect and discuss this film a little bit. Right. But before we do that, let's go over our initial thoughts and just start with Desiree and your initial thoughts of Violent Night.
I think that you're correct in that it didn't shy away from exactly what it is. Like the trailer, I got the movie exactly from the trailer. Like I didn't get surprised by anything. Like the tone was exactly what I was expecting. But I liked it more than I thought I would. Like it was one of those movies that I was like, oh, I'd like to see that, but I didn't really like set a date to go watch it. But once I watched it, I was like, no, this is a good movie. I was like, I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Well.
Yeah, so going into the movie, I didn't watch any trailers for it or anything. But, just watching it, it's just as, like, a Christmas action movie. Like it's what you're expecting. Like the action comes in really quick, just like about 30, 25 minutes into the movie, you have the bad guys breaking in already. And it's like it gets really quick to the action, and that's probably one of my favorite parts about the movie. There were some, questionable characters in there that, you're like, should they be in there or should they not? But other than that, it was a really solid movie to watch during Christmas time, and I really enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, so let's kind of segue right into the first topic of discussion. It's just the characters of the film. It's an interesting take to see Santa's like origin and where he's at in this film. Where like at the beginning he's very jaded with Christmas and is kind of ready to be done, and then as the movie unfolds, you find out he's like this legendary Nordic warrior or something like that, which is pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of like this comic miniseries called Claus that Grant Morrison wrote, where it's like an origin of Santa Claus, where kind of like in that comic universe though, like Santa Claus is very akin to like The Witcher, if you're familiar with that series. But it's interesting to see like he was this brutal warrior at one point in time and was like cursed with being Santa Claus. And so like what did you think about this take on Santa? Will, let's go with you first.
I thought it was quite interesting because I didn't see it coming. When in one of the scenes, it just a cut to him being the Nordic warrior, like that Viking in him, and then we go and we see a little bit further about what he was. His sledgehammer, forgot the name of it, Skull Crusher, that he used, which he uses again in the third act of the movie. It's just really interesting to see how like this isn't what we thought Santa Claus was. This isn't who we thought it was. He has a very interesting background, and he brings up, Miss Claus. He's been up and about. He brings up like 1,000 years ago, so he's been doing this for a long ass time. So I think that was an interesting take in it because I haven't seen anything like that. And he's an actual Santa Claus too. Like just like how the Scrooge, he was like surprised by it too. Like he can see who's naughty, he can see who's nice. He can bring up, what John Leguizamo's character wanted, in his when he was a childhood, in his childhood, and I think that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. It was like an actual Santa Claus. It wasn't like no mall Santa Claus that's like fighting crime or anything. It's like a legit Santa Claus who has a story, like 1,000-year-old story going into it, and he had actual reindeers too. So I thought that was really cool.
What did you think about this take on Santa?
I thought it was really interesting. It was interesting to see a violent Santa, like, and not just like a person that's dressed up as Santa being violent, but no, like Santa is supposed to be canonically like a feared warrior in this movie. Like that was his backstory and stuff. And like, I liked how the movie unfolded this information too. They didn't just like hand it to you. Like they do like a part where he's like he's injured and he's like fixing himself and he has like his like coat off and you see all these tattoos and you're like, okay, like that's cool, but like interesting, and they look like very specifically like like old, like old designs and something like very like traditional or something of some sort of culture. So you're like, what is that about? And then later they kind of show like a glimpse of just him with like how he looked back then, like kind of like a flashback of in his mind maybe, and then it finally unfolds like the actual story. So I like how they gave it to us too, not just like how they wrote it, but like
they didn't info dump it. They just kind of trickle lore in throughout the film to keep you along, because like the main string of this plot, it's not very dense, but it's just basically this family is being held hostage by criminals, and the young daughter of the family wants Santa to come help them, and that's how he gets into the phrase. He just happens to be at the same house, and it's like, all right, time to bust off the old warrior moves and take care of some people. And like that's really where the movie shines, is just the action moments, because like the action's cool and it's creative and it has some really good, like some good kills in it, like when he electrocutes the guy with the Christmas lights, and when he uses the candy cane as like a dagger. And you brought up the sledgehammer scene. Like, I think I could watch a Santa Claus killing people with a sledgehammer to Bryan Adams' Something About Christmas Time forever. Like that was like my favorite scene of the movie when that was happening, because that movie or that song is just like so constantly played on the radio. It's just funny to hear it with the context of what's going on. So like now every time I hear that song, I just think back to Violent Night. So I'm sure that was intentional. And then the daughter had just seen Home Alone for the first time, so she rigged up booby traps, which I never thought they would top the nail moment from Home Alone, and they did top the nail moment from Home Alone. Yeah. So it was very impressive and well done. So what's some of your favorite parts of the action throughout the film, and like maybe a memorable fight scene or something to you?
I like the fight scene, that the one where it ends with the electrocuted, like he stabs him in the face with the star.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that part. I liked the fight that he has, like the big fight at the end with like the main bad guy.
Yeah.
That one, because I mean also that's like the pinnacle, like that's like the climax, you know, like he's fighting the main bad guy and everything. But how he kills him,
it's very creative.
It was, I didn't expect it. I mean, even though up to that point I've seen the violence in that movie, and it doesn't shy away from it and from the blood and everything. I was still shocked enough by that part. Can I say what?
Go for it.
He just like all throughout the movie you can see Santa, like he's able to go up the chimney by like touching his nose, and it's like magic. He just like disintegrates to
Dust,
glitter. Yeah, like just shiny whatever Christmas magic, and goes up the chimney. He does it a few times throughout the movie, and then the very last time he does it, it's during the fight scene, and he has grabbed the main bad guy, like John Leguizamo's character, and does that. He goes up the chimney with him, but since he can fit through the chimney with Christmas magic, John Leguizamo's body just like gets dismembered, like his head comes off, his legs are all off, like he's just holding a torso at the top of the chimney.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite parts, because of like how violent it was, but like it was kind of shocking just because of like I didn't think they were gonna go that far with it. But yeah, I think that is probably my favorite.
Do you got any action or fight highlights?
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna say first that like I really liked how the bad guys, the criminals, they had like some good offense, and you know it's not like they were, you know, Santa Claus was like super overpowered. You know, he was still getting beat up.
Right.
But my favorite action sequence or scene is when the extraction force was coming in. I thought they were gonna help him, right? But they were all a part of it in this ring together. They want the money. When this Christmas music started playing and he has a sledgehammer and he was knocking everyone out, I thought that was really creative, because that's when he used the candy canes and you know, the chiseled end of the candy cane. You know, you suck on that part of it and it gets really sharp. I'm like, yeah, you could definitely use that as a weapon. And then he used roller skates, ice skates, and then he started slashing everyone. I'm like, that was a really good scene, because once you start seeing those bodies come up, you're like, yeah, you're in for a treat, because all those bodies are going to be gone in the next few minutes. So that was a really great scene.
Yeah, it was like how a lot of action films now try to do like their hallway scene, like that the Raid did a few years ago, where like Daredevil's done it, and John Wick's done it, and Dread's done it. That was kind of like their take, where it's like just a wave of bad guys, and the good guy just goes through all of them.
Oh, and the last guy, he blew up the last guy too. Like,
with the grenade, and he breaks the fourth wall there. Like it's like the only time in the movie he does too, where he looks at the camera and he's like, "I gotta watch it." And turns around to watch the grenade go off. But another thing I thought was really creative too was the use of his bag, where like he would dodge like stabs and punches by like having them punch into the bag and then like pull out a present that they stabbed or something. I thought that was pretty creative too. It was just very interesting to see like the John Wick style of action, but like just with Christmas barfed all over it. And I think it made it like way more entertaining than I originally thought it would, because I kind of went into it like you, where I thought it was going to be good, but like just a movie I'd see once and then be like, yeah, that was fine, and then and leave the theater. But I mean, I think it's earned itself into where it's going to be part of my December rotation going forward. honestly, the thing that weighs the movie down the most for me, and is what we can kind of talk about next, is the central family characters. It may be entirely intentional through the filmmakers' choices, but I found the family that Santa is saving completely unlikable. The daughter's parents that she wanted to have get back together because they were separated, and then her dad's siblings and her mother, like none of them are likable people.
Right.
So like I don't root for them to get out of this situation at all, and they do have like a hero moment in the third act where like the two parents kind of reunite and take down some bad guys themselves, but you don't buy into it because I don't think the motivations are sold the same way. So I think the characters were kind of thin, but like with the overall movie, it's not make or break, but it is enough to kind of weigh it down a little bit. Where like when it's doing these character moments, you're like, all right, when's the next action set piece going to happen? So let's have you start first. What did you kind of think about the other characters in the film and stuff like that?
I had the initial like idea that they kind of did like maybe a once over of their dialogue in the script, and then they just kind of were like, that's good, and then
Good
moved
enough.
on to the more important parts of the movie that they wanted to focus on, which I understand. Like there can only be so much you can take your time to focus in a production, and I think that they chose well as far as like they could have gambled and tried to make like shoehorn in a lot more family stuff and make that like more central, but that seemed like an intentional part to put them kind of in the background a little bit, just so the real parts of the movie that people are gonna like can shine and have more of the attention. And I think instead of gambling on trying to put all of it in the foreground, they just went ahead and put it. And so I think it worked out for what it needed to be, but yeah, I mean, like they're not my favorite. Like I'm just like I could do without. And also I think that they wrote them as bad, like not bad people, but like not very likable people, and that helped to just kind of like brush them aside, because you don't really care what's happening to them because they are portrayed as unlikable. So the fact that they get less screen time, like it just feels like they got less screen time, even if they didn't, just because of how they portrayed them and stuff. So I think it works for what it needed to. But yeah, I didn't particularly care for their characters.
Yeah, I wasn't I wasn't really invested into like the whole family situation and everything. Obviously, when it gets like involved with the conflict and everything, like with the money and everything, I was like, yeah, that's pretty interesting. But the characters themselves, like, the movie could have been just great as it was with or without those side characters. Like, you had the main family man's sister who was married or something to a movie star, and he just got killed right. Like, it was funny seeing him killed, but it's like, when I'm looking at characters like that, it's like, even if he wasn't in it, the movie could still go on the same way.
Yeah.
Because he added nothing to the plot. So that was just probably one of the flaws the movie had. Just kind of, I don't want to say they're unnecessary, but like it could have, now they're unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of seemed like basically they thought up all these sweet action scenes that involved Santa Claus, and they were like, well, how can we make this into a movie instead of like a 2-minute YouTube short? Because like the son of the sister, like I made this joke with our director Sydney. I said that he kind of reminds me of you actually a little bit.
Yeah. I could see that. I could see that.
But yeah, so like the family part really didn't matter, but like the daughter's through line does have some impact to it because she's able to prove to Santa that there are children that still believe in Christmas and Christmas magic and believe in Santa, and that kind of reignites his inspiration to be Santa Claus, because at the beginning he's getting drunk in a bar and it's just like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore because no one believes and there's just no faith. Because that's a pretty common theme in most Christmas films, is all revolves around the Christmas spirit and believing and Santa and stuff like that. So it keeps that same central theme. But I do want to talk one more bit about the Home Alone booby traps and how they really up the ante, because the thing that's the most surprising about this is how very much not for children this movie is.
Yeah.
Which is very surprising for a Christmas genre movie. Because like it's really not something that I could see you wanting to take your kids under 10. I mean,
Probably not.
if that's your parenting style, go for it. But like it is very bloody, and the action is very. It's very bloody. It's very choreographed in its uniqueness. Like when the guy falls onto the nail and it goes through the bottom of his head, it doesn't cut away. It lingers, so that you know that it's in his head, and you can tell that they did a prosthetic jaw, so that way he can like wiggle around with the nail coming through his head still, and it cuts back to him like 3 or 4 times before he finally gets his head off of the nail, and so like it's just very interesting to experience a Christmas movie for the first time in a while that is just like not fun for the family in a way. It feels like it's very much targeting the people that grew up with Christmas movies and want something that's just kind of, action, and it succeeds. But the movie's only like an hour and 38 minutes long, and I don't think it could afford to be any longer than that without becoming boring. But that pretty much sums up the movie too, since it's so short and sweet and to the point. So let's just go around to do our final thoughts on the film and give it your rating out of 5 reels. Let's have you go first, Will, since you're the newcomer this episode.
Cool. This movie was really like, I wasn't expecting it to be like so violent. Like, it's called Violent Night, but like I didn't see any like promotional stuff for it, so I wasn't expecting all the amount of the action sequences, like some gore in there too. So I would give it I'm gonna give it a 4 reels. I'm gonna give it 4 reels just because there were some parts that were like just makes you go into that Christmas spirit, especially with the daughter and Santa. They had a really good a bond between the two, especially towards the end. Santa's dying, they started burning money, and like that's kind of symbolic too, burning money around Christmas. Like that money gives you Christmas gifts, so you're gonna need that money. But these kids, they want Santa, so why not keep Santa alive? And one thing I liked about this movie was Santa was actually a real Santa. Like I said this before, it wasn't like a mall Santa Claus.
Yeah.
This was legit Santa. Like this guy can have a magic bag that he just pulls presents out of. Like I would have loved that when I was a kid. If Santa could do that. Like I want a guitar. Bring me out a guitar. And there was a part where they actually brought out a guitar. It was a ukulele, but
did it make you believe? Did it give you that Christmas spirit?
Yeah, it definitely got me back into the Christmas spirit because I was kind of losing it for a few years, but I'm definitely back into the spirit now. So yeah, 4 out of 5 reels.
Okay, good.
Nice.
Good. Desiree, how about you?
I would say maybe like a 3.5 on my scale. Just I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would going into it. And like you said, like it's gonna be one that I'll want to watch like next Christmas time, So yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot more, and it was very funny. It like balanced like sentimental parts with humor, with action very well, I think, to make it definitely enjoyable.
Yeah, I think on my rating scale, I also gave it a 3.5 out of 5, and it's only because I found the parts outside of the action just so like not interesting, and it weighs it down enough to where like it's a good movie and I had a really good time with it, but like I guess shame on me expecting better writing out of the film, but like it's just not there. But I mean, it's still a good movie, and I'm gonna buy it when it comes out, and I'm gonna watch it every December. But it's just not at Christmas classic level like that I kind of hoped it would be. Does that make sense? Yeah. So yeah, that's my final thoughts. That's their final thoughts on Violent Night. If you've seen it at home, what did you think about it? Or if you've paused the episode and came back, put in the comments what you've thought of it as well. Let's go around the horn now in case there's any social medias anyone wants to plug. Will, where can the people find you out on the internet?
So you guys can find me on Letterboxd. I'll have it right in the lower third over here. And you guys can also follow me on Instagram.
What's your username on Instagram?
It'll be right down here on the lower third.
Oh, okay. Okay. Desiree?
I'm on Letterboxd. I forgot my name last time. It's Des Nicole 127.
Okay. And you can find me on Letterboxd at WBeam76. You can find College TV on Instagram at College TV FW. And you can also find us on TikTok at the same place. And thank you for tuning in for another episode of Real Good Movies. Tune in January when we come back for another one. So enjoy the holidays, enjoy the new year. Thank you for joining, and we will see you next time. So roll credits.
Gosh, I love movies.